Harnessing and utilizing sustainable energy at scale is one of the greatest challenges we face, and Denmark is one of the leading nations in wind energy development and utilization. And indeed, across the Nordic region, we are of course blessed with a lot of wind, both on and offshore. We also have a heritage of organizations who are global leaders in harnessing, storing, and distributing the wind. But there are many challenges still to be solved as we scale our sustainable energy capabilities, and it requires a complex interaction of many players in the supply chain. It also opens up new opportunities for new chains of value. Now, key to realizing the benefits of sustainable energy are, of course, evolving digital capabilities, which transform everything from design, construction, storage and distribution, and the security of operations. To help clients solve complex challenges, such as those faced on the road to sustainable energy generation, it requires a deep understanding of the industry itself. Now, it helps if the partner has a presence across the entire energy chain, from energy generation to smart systems to innovative engineering. So we wanted to have a conversation with one of the global leaders in sustainable energy from Tech Mahindra about challenges and digitization, which is why we are pleased to have this discussion with Sumit Gupta today and get his perspectives on how Tech Mahindra can solve complex challenges on the road to sustainable energy. And Tech Mahindra is the digital and technology services arm of the Mahindra Group, which is a vast global operation with many businesses including energy, construction, automotive, telecommunications, financial services, and others. This means that when Tech Mahindra get involved with clients from the sustainable energy side, they bring in global experts who have developed decades of energy expertise through design, deployment, and operations of all kinds of energy demands and the associated supply chains that are generated. So we're very pleased to welcome Sumit Gupta, who is a global subject matter expert from Tech Mahindra, and he's got decades of experience across the energy industries. And Sumit, to get things started, I'd just like to ask you, please could you tell us a little bit about your fascinating background and also your role within Tech Mahindra?
Thank you, Patrick, for me, it's been 2.5 decades into the energy and utility segment. I spent time work with the A.T. Kearney, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and with the ministry. My role and my involvement in the last 6-7 years while I've been shaping up the renewable sector has been on identifying the OT aspect of the renewable sector, which is called the operation technologies, which always involve how the entire generation happens from these assets. Plus, how does the integrations with the grid happen? That's very vital on this, because we may have assets, but we may not be able to fail to deliver everything onto the grid, what is there. And then what is the IT requirement for them? See, the IT means in order for these renewable assets to work in a tremendous way, they need to look at the IT as a main mechanism. And IT means advanced technology, could be the part of the layer of enterprise system to the part of advanced forecasting systems or weather system, which can help them to look at, because all renewable work on a natural resources, which is there. So OT and IT level of activity within the last 25 years, especially around the transformation within the Indian ecosystem of renewable, as what Tech Mahindra saw in me to take me for this transformation of the same to the global front. And today, what I'm trying to drive to the global energy giants are my experience plus the Tech Mahindra's experience, which is a global group, part of global group, which has been involved into a lot of sustainable programs by different entities. So I am trying to take together the experience which is of the group and my experience to the larger conglomerates in the global segments, and tell them how they can harness this, how they can make use of this, and try to become an organization which is data-driven, digital-driven, and then they can harness the power of technology for their optimize and maximize output from their assets which are there.
And as you say, the Mahindra Group is a vast organization with industrial teams or business units focused on automotive, on energy, on financial, on many things. And Tech Mahindra fits within there. And you leverage all of this global industrial expertise at scale.
Yeah, correct, Patrick. So you rightly said Mahindra Group with this genesis way back from the 1947, from the time when India got the independence. So 75 years long history which they have, and they have grown into from the farm, from the automotive. Which is from the passengers to luxury vehicle to the farm equipments to the finance to the home living to the wastewater management to the solar and to technology. So there is a vast element which has been there into this vibrant group of a $20 billion group and a 250K people spread all across the globe and working forward. Tech Mahindra is an IT arm, and IT is always kind of a binding thread, right? As is a thread which actually weaves towards the entire processes of the organization. So Tech Mahindra weaves through these ecosystems, garnishing the experiences of that sector and bring to the people out into different vertical offering. So like the way the Mahindra Group is divided into automotive, financials, and different segments, same way the verticalized offering within Tech Mahindra, addressing each vertical. And these were like telecom and other thing. And this is all coming up from the experiences which the group has been driving on the practically on the ground. So Sustain as one of the organizations which is there is doing a solar ground mounted development and the wind assets in India. Now, for doing that, there is an organization called Mahindra Techo, and the Techo does a large asset management and operation and maintenance. So they do OT part of it, and an IT element brings in part of how we sustain and bring that. For water side and the water management, for the wastewater, there is a Mahindra wastewater management organization which works in. There is a Mahindra EV, which is the stage organization which is into, and Mahindra has been the one of the group, one of the companies which has been pioneer in their investment in the EV stage when people were really not seeing EV as a market. Right. So such a part of legacy really comes very handy because the experiences of the domain for that, plus the technology put together tries to carve out as a real place and a real transformation, because you're not just talking about the technology, you're talking about a consultative driven technological transformation, which is very vital in today's parlance than to be just a pure play technology organization.
Now, helping to solve complex sustainable energy challenges is at the top of everyone's agenda. And the Mahindra Group is a vast organization with a lot of different industries and expertise in energy solutions. Can you tell us a little bit about how Mahindra and Tech Mahindra sees the opportunity to solve many of our sustainable industry challenges?
You rightly said Mahindra has been a group as an entity has been a 75-year-old legacy. It starts from the part of the time India got independence, the Mahindra Group was born. And Mahindra Group has walked through the part of changes every time which has been taking place with respect to the sustainable living, whether it's a part of an agri, whether it's a part of science, whether it's a part of technology, whether it's a part of renewable, and whether it's a part of water management and the cities and smart living part of it. And the Mahindra Group as such has evolved over the period of time with various entities. Mahindra Sustain as one of the entity which work very closely on putting a renewable solar footprint and almost have an asset of 6 gigawatt of 9 gigawatt of solar assets which have been done in Indian landscape. There is an organization which is on part of waste water management and water management, which is also part of sustainable transmission living, and the clean water and the sanitation levels have been took part of the part of rural sectors and the semi-urban and the urban sectors within the landscape in Indian geography. And look at a part of electric vehicles and EV when talk about sustainability and the global frontiers. Mahindra Group has been at the forefront of putting it as a landscape 20 years back, the starting an EV vehicle in India, and that's today has a larger forefront in terms of the going in the sector. And if you look at all this, there's a technology arm which is called TECO, which work on the OT side of bringing in integration on the renewable element, and Tech Mahindra being the IT arm of the group. And when I say IT arm, means it tries to look at weaving together what are the digital technologies as well as the classic enterprise technologies required for putting the organization together. And that's where when these organizations on a sustainable drive, they need to have someone who have experience of sustainable footprint and how to bring and stitch them together. So I believe Tech Mahindra, with an experience of doing things in-house within the part of the group, they take it to the larger forefront. And one of the only organization I'll say who has worked practically in-house solving the challenges of OT-IT integrations within the renewable footprint or the sustainable footprint, and creating a global journey for that. And I must add one more thing. Tech Mahindra has been awarded the best sustainability award globally. So that's one of the accolades which only Tech Mahindra as an organization has on its credit. And this is one of the I'll say the jewels on the crown, which will keep on adding up furthermore as the group grows on in the journey.
Now, as a global subject matter expert, what are some of the key trends in sustainability that you are observing and indeed helping to resolve?
See, if you look at a part of the subject sustainability, and when we talk about sustainability is bringing a carbon neutrality as a main key factor, and reduction of the carbon footprint in the global scenario. And this all started almost around a decade and a half back, when the carbon reductions element on the fossil fuels were looked at a perspective of having an impact on the climate change. And that was a time when the economy started looking at how to bring and add a part of non-conventional element of energy usage within their footprint, and adding a sustainability. When it says sustainability, is more like what are we trying to give to the next generation? What kind of planet we are leaving behind for the next generation to come in? And at that level, organizations, whether they are into the part of building up the transformation assets and sustainability, like the wind power generators, wind power organizations, though people are in solar organizations, people are in biomass, those are in the value chain of the renewable, plus those who are contributing in setting up those farms, setting up those systems, the value chain of that, with the part of OEMs, whether part of the EPC player, whether part of the O&M, and the technology players who are there. They all are contributing in terms of creating a sustainable global environment. We have seen that the renewable is almost 10% of the global energy demand basket, if I look at. So 10%, which is currently is coming out typically around almost last year, if you look at around 110 to 115 gigawatt of the renewable was being added into the footprint of 2,479 of a renewable footprint, which we call as a globally, right? This is mix of hydro and the part of renewable footprint. Now, next 5 years, we are looking at 2021, 2025, where everybody's quite passionate about growing the sustainable goal, whereas the renewable will grow 300 gigawatt. That's the way the whole element is looking at, and add to more of a sustainable living and sustainable future, which is trying to as a key mantra of growth.
Thanks. Now, we're in the Nordic region, and we're blessed, of course, with a lot of wind, both onshore and offshore. But actually harnessing and capturing that wind and then converting it, storing it, transmitting it, that's a very complex set of activities requiring many different organizations. Could you give us some insights into the challenges facing the wind energy exploitation opportunity?
Patrick, I should basically congratulate you, as you're from the Nordic region, and Nordic region has been someone who has been the pioneer of striking the change in the entire ecosystem. If you look at, though, in the global wind portfolio, China and US and India would be in the top three as a part of their footprint. But Nordics have been the one who has been the top league with respect to the part of the megawatt or a gigawatt per square foot of the area of the land which you have, right? So the land and the offshore, which is on the sea part of investment, and large assets which are there in the Nordic region, that with the part of it, you look as a the share with per square foot of the area or per square kilometer of the area, Nordics is in the top league of the renewable generations which are happening in. And secondly, if you look at, all countries are moving towards trying to bring lesser of the fossil fuels investment. And in that case, if you look at Nordic region, especially if you talk about Denmark, Sweden, Norway, these and Finland, they are the one who has been going in the forefront along with Germany and other Spain. They are talking about by 2030 we will be carbon neutrality. That means you would be 100% on renewable by 2030, and that's not far off. We're talking about next, say, 8 to 9 years down the line, and your complete area would be run on a renewable, and that is, I mean, it's a commendable thing which the world has to watch. In fact, that is where the Nordics will lead again, and will be surmounting the element of how the sustainable footprints are being carved out. Now, coming to your question on the value chain, the challenges, yes, you are absolutely correct. When you look at a part of the infrastructure to be set up at the entire element, the value chain comprises of from the time of identifying the suitable place which has to go in, which will be part of the kind of planning and action and understanding what and kind and size and shape of the thing has to go on for your wind farm which you want to put it up over there. So planning becomes a very important element. So one of the value chain aspect is looking at which site you want to go. Site becomes very important. Again, from the site, you depend on the choice of the material. So your design is the second aspect of your value chain activity. And in the design aspect, you're looking at how you're bringing together the perspective of the site which you're choosing. Because if the site is offshore, which is having a lot of amount of wind over there, you have to design something which can withstand a wind speed of more than 55 miles per hour kind of thing. Because typically for a windmill, almost in 6 to 7 miles per hour can start generating electricity. But if you're in offshore environment, you get a wind which goes to 55 miles per hour, and that may try to actually, and the wind mill is higher than the Statue of Liberty, is the part of the taller in size in the offshore environment. So they have to be put up. The design becomes very important, how much you're able to build them, the material which is required. So design comes the second end of the value chain. And then the part of your EPC players, which is the engineering, procurement, constructions, they, as a part of how you're putting it up, setting it up, right, and then the element of inspection which goes on in the value chain becomes very important. Now, why I'm talking about this, and then perspective about the how you commission the entire the structure, and then it goes into part of an O&M stage where you're looking at a O&M. There's a complete supply chain. There's a complete value chain. And in this value chain, there's a role of technology. Technology plays a very important role, because we may know, okay, what is a good site with a gut feel, but if we do not know a part of a complete study of the wind pattern, complete study of the historical data, complete study of the image part of your the weather conditions and the future part of it. So which earlier we are only like looking at the historical, how the wind has been the place, but the today's images which is there from the meteorological department can tell us how the weather pattern can change and how would be the part of the turnaround. So technology start playing a role, and for this technology we require technology arm and technology entities to play. Now the wind developers may not try to put in all of these in the first go, and that's where the technology players come in handy to understand, give them which site to select. There are models, there are techniques, there are AI methodology to be adopted for doing this. Same way it goes for the designs. There are AI methodology to look at how you're trying to design your the wind farms and how you're trying to get those ready. What kind of OEMs which are there to be involved into this value chain prior and before, because these OEMs which you're trying to involve, their supply chain also get impacted part of your planning, because you are not trying to set up a windmill and it take only as a part you think today and tomorrow will be done. It is a complete activity, and those windmills have to be decided whether it's to be 1 megawatt, 2 megawatt, or 100 kilowatt, depending on what level of things has to be going. And these manufacturers like Gamesa, like Siemens, like your Vestas and GE, they all have to look at their entire supply chain network of making things available. Involving them into this becomes very important part of the process. So when I say this value chain, the technology very important role, and company like Tech Mahindra, company, all technology players have an important role to play depending on where do they come. Tech Mahindra advantage that we have done that in India. We have done with our entities over here. We bring that experience to the global footprint, to the Nordics region, especially which is blooming up with the part of the wind investment coming up. And not to forget, once the windmills are being set up, there are operation and maintenance activity, and for that you require special techniques of looking at and what form of time the storms are coming up, what kind of forecasting need to be done, what kind of maintenance you need to be doing, whether you need to be looking at a plant of doing a asset health check timely basis. So those are elements and technique where you require to be involved with the wind developers, and technology players have a very important role to do that in that particular play. And I think Nordics will play a very important role as a transformation.
So Tech Mahindra has digital capabilities that help solve all of those different supply chain aspects, and also the different planning elements of building, supporting, maintaining, say, wind farms.
Yeah, so at Tech Mahindra, we have, sorry, we as an organization, we are driving a 3-pillar approach, which is called decarbonization. That means how we are able to reduce and help organization, our customer, to reduce their carbon. Because as an organization, we ourselves are sustainability index, we are the top notch within our peers and the group. So we drive this how to make our customers, by our solutions, reduces energy consumptions and decarbonize them. We are working on regularization. That means where the economies are working on regulated manners, how they can work on deregulated manners and bring in more innovative learning techniques. And when you look at a part of distributed resources and distributed generation, which comes up, third element. So decarbonization, deregulations, and distributed energy become the third perspective of driving the change. And within this, the organizations drive the 4 elements. We say the customer focus, the focus around the part of our asset, focus on the part of supply chain, and the focus on the part of the entire employee and the team which is there. So now all of this, when you look at the element of the solar and the wind farm operators, their data could be a variety of types, could be structured, could be unstructured, could be semi-structured part of it. And that will require a cloud as an offering to handle it. Now, all this is where the digital experience which Tech Mahindra as an organization tries to bring forward by various capabilities coming up in the technology areas of AI, machine learning, digital AR, VR, which is called part of digital twins. We are talking about the part of blockchain, and all these technologies, along with the digital experience, they have been offered over the cloud to the organization. So Tech Mahindra as an entity is a leading provider of these services as system integrator in a global scenario, and being ready and prepared to do this for the renewable developers and people who are acting in the value chain of renewables, whether the manufacturers, whether they are EPC players, whether they are part of the O&M, people who are doing the part of maintenance, people who are people doing real-time monitoring of the data. For all those, the digital platforms are available within Tech Mahindra to deliver those capabilities.
And I guess security of the operation is a key focus area as well. So protecting and securing the integrity of the entire operation, is that something that you're also focused on?
That's a very good question you have asked, Patrick. In fact, security is of paramount importance for any digital transformation. and especially for the organizations which are looking at transforming data over the large networks. And in the renewable side, if you look at the solar and the wind farms are very widely distributed, whereas you have a command centers into the at a different place altogether. And in this journey, Tech Mahindra holds an advantage over its competitors, as well as I'll say other system integrators. As the journey of Tech Mahindra started with the large portfolio of the telecom, and even today the group has almost 50% of the revenue comes from the telecom sector. So telecom, where you are looking at the network and communication, is a key element which involves the cyber security and the security element. And when we are looking at the renewable, now why security and renewables are connected, I'll give you a little perspective on that too. When we are looking at these wind farms who are being an offshore or onshore, right? And you have the data which is being pulled out while your entire wind system start moving in with the wind flow, like your rotors are moving and they're putting the gear into action with the shaft, and then the generators put the data and the energy starts flowing in. These data is passed through different protocols to a SCADA system on the field, which is again to be protected as a part of the security on the data at the SCADA level. And then from that, this data from the local environment moves to the central environment or the central place where you are looking at controlling the data moving to the grid. So from the field, the data goes to the command center. From there, you're controlling it to the what is feeding the grid perspective. So this data has to move through a network, and that network need to be protected. So cyber, the security of this, when the entire communication thread, which is the data moving through various protocols, various levels, have to be dealt in a very compliance manner. For each and every region have their own compliances. Each country has their own compliances. Each energy regulator has their own compliances part of it. So Tech Mahindra is placed at a very comfortable level to bring this. In fact, the mantra for the 2022 is the 5G as a key element of driver, which is our genesis of part of thing. And on the top of it, you're looking at cyber security, but security as a key element of building the large ecosystem or digital ecosystem, digital organization, digital wind developers, wind farms, producers organization. And on the top of is the AI, which comes in, because when you get the data, it is always has to use for you to harness it so that you are able to derive the next level of operation optimization. So when this data start coming to you, you can plan it for how was the condition of your windmill, how was the condition of the weather, how when the storms are coming up, how to look at a part of your asset maintainability, and what time you're taking for the maintenance. So sorry, many things can be added for the part of this element of AI.
Earlier in the conversation, you explained about some of the organizations in the supply chain for capturing and harnessing, distributing renewable energy. Now, what are some of the challenges that these organizations face?
Say, when you think of setting up a wind farm, right? And in wind farm, when you are looking at, it is just not about putting up a windmill and then the energy starts coming in, or putting up a solar farm and the energy starts coming up. You have to think about each and every component and involve those people into the system. Now, a wind farm, if I take an example, has an element of an equipment which is come from a part of an OEM or a manufacturer who supplies those equipment. Now, then there is a wind farm to be set up. Then there is an EPC player for that, somebody who's trying to set it up to the installation. And the third level is somebody who's trying to operate and maintain for this. Now, and then there's developers. So there are four major entities who are coming up. Now, people may change their roles depending on the developer can also play a role of an EPC player and can also play a role of an O&M. As it what the part of in the beginning, the organizations are like that, and as they start growing organically or inorganically, they start giving the different faces, different people to manage, and that becomes a part of the element of challenges which start coming up, and you have to cope up with them and integrate them in the pattern. Now, the first and the foremost is when you're trying to look at setting up a a wind farm, you are looking at a space, the site, and for that site, you are doing an analysis. You are getting into a design which tells you about what is the type of windmill you require for that area. Now, windmills are also like the vertical axis, horizontal axis, they all depend upon where you're trying to put them. They are the horizontal axis, the vertical axis windmill. They're also different size and capacities. Now, our manufacturers are not like cots. They have got things available on the shelf, and you go and pick them up from there. They also need to plan their complete value chain, and the setting up or supplying of a wind turbine or one turbine, it is a lead time of almost around 4 to 5 months, which takes in. So if you are planning of putting up a 100 megawatt wind farm with 100 of windmills each of 1 megawatt, that means looking at your OEM should give you 100 turbines at the same time, probably, right? Or distribute over part of 6 months. So they also need to plan. They also need to have a complete aspect of, and then their suppliers will be there who themselves need to plan. And then on the part of a global scenarios which are changing, different, and we keep sourcing materials from different countries and different places, then there could be economic policies, other thing changing different countries, which may have a plan of supply chain complete. So manufacture itself, when you're trying to look at in your planning process, has a very important place. The manufacturer OEMs of the wind turbines become a partner for your transformation change. So when you are trying to plan a changes or a part of a wind farm to be developed, involve the manufacturers into that as a partner, and which is happening. We find that thing happening in the Indian landscape. And with this partner, you're trying to bring the entire technology in place, because when you are able to know and see them, you are able to explore, put your bill of material to the OEM, and the OEM can then share the part of their bill of material to the subsequent suppliers who are supplying the different aspect, and they can do a kind of a MRP, the material requirement planning, in their systems to look at the supply chain. So that is a very important element to be looked at. A part of one of those supply chain bottlenecks can be overthrown by involving and bringing in the partners together. The other element which comes on the part of EPC player. Now, EPC players who are basically the people who are setting up the farm, and they are, when you try to set up a farm, you require a lot of people for that. You require machinery, you require equipment. Now, if you are sending that just a farm has to set up, and there's a delay in your materials and which are not coming up, right? Your equipments, your turbines, your rotors and blades and everything, your towers, steel, your EPC players team is idle. Now, the time and the people, staff cost over there, and they cannot be set on idle mode. So your entire critical path becomes very important. That means in the critical path, when you're trying to put the EPC players, when you're trying to put your manufacturers over there, and the entire supply chain has been enabled. And once you have done this, you have got to inspection each places. So your inspections, your regulators who are coming up and seeing the quality of the your installations, and finally doing the commissioning. At the time of commissioning, also we're trying to bring your systems up. Then you're looking at that after commissioning, how you are pumping the energy into the grid. That means how your grid integration has been done. Very important subject is the grid integration, because lot many times what happened, we find that the grids are not ready to take the load of the variability of the wind patterns which are coming up, right? Because the grids are already been built up as part of the earlier, the distribution or the transmission network which has been carved out in that particular way, in the setup which was already been decided. Because now wind and solars are mostly distributed architectures. You are trying to set up as a location where the good winds are, but maybe you may not have the network to evacuate the power from there. And whatever network is there, if you're trying to put the power there, they're already supposed stressed, then they may not take your power. Then you're putting up a wind farm at that level, may all your effort go in waste. So these are all elements or challenges which one has to very, very be cautious about while they are trying to look at. And in solving this, technology plays a very important role, friend. And why? Because with technology, you are actually looking at numbers and data and finding out, because the entire grid availability we cannot just do manually on Excel. It requires something to look around what is the load pattern, how it's coming from various places, how my load dispatch schedules have been set up in the grid. Similarly, on the part of my availability of the material, my planning, because sitting over here, if I only try to tell my OEM, please supply the material, and the material is not there because he themselves does not have visibility on the supply coming from his vendors are there. So it is a complete collaborated supply chain, which is the or a collaborative value chain in which all people in the chain plays a very important role, and subsequently the technology enablers has a very very important role, because they not only bring that OTPs, which is a part of SCADA, things have been involved and installed into the wind farms, their integration, but also the IT level security command centers to look at all the wind generations at different places, understand the network, and give us a part of an alert where things are not functioning the way it's required to be.
In the Nordic region and indeed across all of Europe, green hydrogen is a big focus area. Could you give us some of your insights about the challenges with scaling green hydrogen?
A very, very, very vital subject as of now, which is a talk of town everywhere in all the summits which you look around, whether it's a Copenhagen or other places. All the people are talking about green hydrogen. I give a little background of that. There was a gray hydrogen which comes from the part of the fossil fuel. There's a blue hydrogen which comes from the natural gas dissociation, and there's a green hydrogen which comes from part of our electrolysis process when we get the hydrogen out from there, leaving behind the water. And this green hydrogen is being looked upon as a major contributor from the energy gap. We are looking at that by 2050, there should be almost 50% of the carbon neutrality would happen. And in that, green hydrogen will contribute almost around 30% of the energy need globally. That's the vital one figure. I mean, probably these are coming out from the various researches people have done at different places, be it Harvard, be it MIT, be it at the part of INSEAD and all those places. So these researchers have been talking about, and then the lot of large business houses has already made advances in that direction. In fact, a lot of renewable players have moved into this. And as I mentioned, the hydrogen today, if we look at when you're talking about the cleaner fuels, natural gas has been used in our home. We use natural gas in our home we use compressed natural gas in our vehicles for driving. And that time is not far away when we use some form of hydrogen as a water, which is for the water electricity. And then same thing, which will be used for the perspective of our generation. The challenge which is faced, or typically if I look around, the whole cost, if you see, 10 years back, the cost of the renewable penetration was very less. Why? Because the cost of generation of a 1 megawatt was pretty high, right? Now, if I look at part of 1 megawatt of a solar farm was almost around close to $2.5 million in India, which was there. Now the same has almost shrunk to $250K US dollar, which is the $250,000, which has been there for setting up a part of 1 megawatt plant. So that's the way the cost which has come down. Typically, which we see over the period of time, the cost of producing green hydrogen will be lesser. Why? Because the infrastructure required for green hydrogen is the same which you have in currently, because the water this has to pass through the part of pipes to be used as part of a electrolysis process, and you are only setting up a system for electrolysis to dissociate the ions and produce more ions. So as the time to roll on, the green hydrogen will be more and more prominent. Why? Because of the two elements, the cost of the infrastructure will be lower, so the cost of energy will be lower, and the people will be trying to move on and introduce this into the parlance of the usage. And to do that, more and more technological perspective will be brought in. When I say technology of producing it, and then technology of managing it, technology of bringing into the portfolio. So today, if we look at the part of every utility consists of the basket of our different power sources, whether it's a part of a renewable, which is consisting of our small hydro or a large hydro or a biomass and renewable solar and wind, and the fossil fuel based on thermal part of it, gas or a coal based, right? Now this power portfolio basket, which is there for every utility, you'll find that slowly next 2-3 years down the line, you'll find that green hydrogen will become part of that basket, and the share will keep on expanding up. And as a renewable footprint is going to increase, I think the time is not far off when we will be discussing like this more on the green hydrogen and its applicability in different areas. Now, Europe as an entire continent and Nordics as a region and other part of things are always moving ahead. I know many of the business houses who have started working in this space, especially in the European segment. So I'm sure certainly there will be great lead taken by the organizations who are already having renewable footprint. They are going up because the kind of renewable green hydrogen coming up, and we as Tech Mahindra or as a Mahindra group are positioned enough to contribute that segment, be it in a part of trying to grow a footprint into India, as well as support the organizations producing them on a part of the technology integrations to the grid part of it.
I presume that delivering sustainable energy in a secure way requires a tight ecosystem of many different types of organizations. Could you talk a bit about the kind of ecosystem aspects of delivering sustainable energy?
Yeah, you rightly said, to deliver a sustainable goal, you require many organizations to be part of that network, be it a part of technology players, be it a part of the manufacturing organizations, or be it a part of different segments. So in this ecosystem, which we call as the value chain of renewable setup, it starts from the part of where we have the manufacturers or the OEMs, which is there, right? And those OEMs again look in terms of their suppliers, right? Which in terms look at their suppliers. There's a complete value chain. And then there is also one more element which we normally tend to miss out, called the logistics for people. The logistics also become very important because they are the entity which is making the entire supply chains more smooth and effective, and trying to make all those pieces of the materials and the equipment being shipped from one to other places and make the things available. So logistics also becomes very important as an element. So when we talk about the OEMs and the manufacturers, these are all the elements which comes in the one part. Then there are technology players who are bringing the technology, which is the OT technology. Now, what about automation technology, with like players like Siemens, a player like Rockwell, ABB, Honeywell, these are all who have their SCADA systems. Now, these SCADA systems can also come from the OEMs who are manufacturing, like Siemens manufacturer or a GE manufacturer or a Vestas or a Gamesa. They all manufacture their own turbines. They also have their IT arms, which is doing the part of the SCADA systems, or they tie up with the other vendors who are there in that journey, so as to have a seamless integration of the technology between what they're doing at the manufacturing end and what the generations are being actually captured by the systems, which are OT systems, and move to the network. Then there are the value players which come into this, is very important, is the developer as a whole. And within the developer, there is because they need to look at about designing. Now, the developer may try to give this piece of activity to the EPC player, and EPC player will be an engineering, procurement, and a construction active organization. Now, they may look at putting up a right design. And I was mentioning to you, the design plays a very key element in our renewable assets, because the material which we are choosing for the setup, it depends upon the soil conditions, depending on part of where we are trying to use it, whether it's an onshore or an offshore part of it, what will be part of a storms which will be trying to face up over there. And These all the design has to look around. So if we are not making use of design systems or softwares, if we go with a gut based, we might not be able to really build up a very efficient renewable farm, which could be a solar farm with this. Now, for that, the technology, which is part of the design technology, as well as a part of an IT, plays very important role to design a robust, efficient system. Now, this design get translated to the part of the OEMs to produce, but then there's a procurement, and in procurement, you're also looking at how effectively you are bringing in the supply chain, because your procurement is supply chain aspect, and you're looking at element of involving all the elements supply chain, because as a procurement entity, you are looking at not only meeting the goals of setting the entire farm, but also looking at all the elements contributing. Could be a 3PL, could be a vendors, their vendors, and other people who are setting it up. Those the people who are providing and coming up with the equipment, so setting up the equipment. So those all become very essential and things. So entire value chain keep on improving on, and everybody has an important stake in that. And then when you move on to the part of it, after this, the O&M side, and O&M becomes very important aspect, because you are looking at a continued journey and continued working. And there you require more of very important systems like your command centers, where technology players become very important players to do that.
I guess there's an opportunity now, as we're transitioning towards more and more sustainable energy solutions, for many different types of partners and players to come together and work together in new kind of ecosystems, new projects, new capabilities. Can you give us some insights into how these organizations are forming, how they're coming together?
Yeah, you're correct. In fact, with the changing landscape, now it is not about just that we work in silos, and everybody in this ecosystem has to work in a partnering manner. And I always try to draw a corollary with the part of car manufacturers, with the way they try to have their ancillary being sets up, and then everything goes as a milk run, where the truck goes on and get the things, and then that's because whatever the car manufacturer, the OEM is trying to create, right? They are sharing their entire things with the downstream value chain entities, and everybody is being effectively working. A similar thing has to come in the renewable space too, if we are looking at efficient working. Wind farm developers, which are very prominent, like Orsted, very prominently present across the globe, with their assets in Americas, within European region, and also in the Asia Pacific part of it, with the diversified assets, wind farms like Fortums, who are there, who are doing in different part of the globe. Now, when they are looking at their asset growth, and looking at a part of their ecosystem growth. And this is not that they are just doing it, because I keep reading about them, and they have a very novel growth plan and strategy in place. Now, when these strategies are in place to grow to the larger levels in the ecosystem of renewable, whether it's a wind and a solar, or tomorrow could be hydrogen, green hydrogen part of it, the involvement of others in the ecosystem, which is the OEMs, which is like your wind turbine manufacturers, and with those OEMs, be it part of Siemens and Gamesha's, or be it part of Vestas, be it part of GE, or be it part of any other, or Suzlon, as a name could be. Now, if they are, probably if you're setting up a part of a wind farm of 100 megawatt, and you are trying to involve them and giving them a piece of 20 megawatt each of them, and bringing around and different, because each of those wind farms with different areas you're setting up may have a same design conditions, or may have a different design conditions. And in that place, you are helping them plan your journey, plan your actually the time. You are reducing your time to your operations, and quicker you are, more you are able to produce, more you are able to generate on your ROI levels, which could reduce down. So you are reducing the level of your setting up the time, which is from your conceptualization to the operations commissioning. If you're reducing that time frame, you are making more the returns coming up in the shorter time frame. And this is where the wind and solar, I think, have an edge over the conventional energy means. If you're trying to set up a 10 megawatt of a conventional solar plant, it takes around close to 3 to 4 years, whereas the solar plant can set up in a matter of 6 months, to the wind farm can set up in a matter of 3 to 4 months part of it. So that's the way the whole transition of time comes in. This time can be reduced by bringing in a vertical integrations of the upstream players, your OEMs and 3PLs. You are trying to bring them into a streamline and supply chain, and value engineering becomes a very important role if we look at that aspect. But again, one of the very important element is the trust, and trust comes with quality, and quality is another part of security. So that is what we need to see, that the quality, trust, and the network security is being perceived, and we always look at the communication flow is maintained. And to enable all this, the technology organizations like Tech Mahindra is poised and placed very beautifully to harness this changing ecosystem and bringing a platform where large wind developers can integrate and play with their vendors and harness it for their growth and their operational efficiency.
So, Sumit, I guess that IT operations are a key function and a key area of concern for wind farm developers and managers. Could you give us some insights there?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. In fact, this is one of the part of the value chain, which is very, very important to be looked upon once the plant has been commissioned. And I always try to break the entire value chain is one of the part of the called planning, and where you are looking into site selection as well as the manufacturers. Second is a part of where you're trying to look at your commissioning. And third is the operation and maintenance. Now, within operation maintenance, there are two parts, which is very, very vital. One element is the organizations start collecting data into the phase of operation. And this data is very, very important as it tells about the current status of how my plant is. But not only that, it starts telling also where our plants are not going right in the way we were supposed to generate the wind power or the solar power, right? And we are able to look at data deeper by forming into relations we call regressions, and then we move into the part of what we call as a understanding by means of a predictive or a preventive care of those things. But to start with, today we see there is the data which has changed. Earlier, if we talk about the wind farms and or the part of renewable assets which have been put up, and today what we see, there is a gross change. The data today, what is coming up is very fast, very high speed data. We use sensors, we use devices, we use these streaming data coming up. This data, if we keep storing them, our database is going to be filled up very fast. So we need to have an edge computing. That means at the edge where the devices are, we should be able to look around what the patterns are and understand and send the signal to the command centers. So edge computing, edge analytics becomes a very important place for the high speed. There are different types of protocols being used in the field. For those are different ways. Semi-structured, because we may not understand, we know them, but we cannot decipher them. So they're semi-structured. For them, you need to transfer them into a commonly understood protocols to be communicatable and be converted to the information to be used for the analysis. The third part is pictures, the images which keeps coming on. And they are also very unstructured because you cannot make out information from them. Now, all of this has to be used by the developer or the wind farm operator cannot say, yes, I do not want this, because this is all required for the longevity of the plant as well as given the output or to increase the output of the plant, each or every plant they have. In that parlance, very central to in the operation side is creating a data lake, or a data lake is a central lake which brings together the data for all the pieces of different sites which are spread across. As I took example of Austin, which are so diversely been spread across the globe. If they had looking at the data centers or the data warehouse, they would be holding it in Denmark, where they get the data for all those places there. And that data lake, to create them, put them as, you need to have a proper integrations for different places, different thing, and you need an IT organization. to enable it, to support it, because you cannot create those entire team of people to do those OT level of data movement to the part of your carving out this entire structure and information lake, as well as put this entire data onto the cloud, because such data becomes very huge, and you have to instead of keeping investment at your end, you would like to have a cloud as environment to support and move it. That's where technology companies come into the handy to support the information, create a landscape, and give you harness the data for a larger perspective. Now, this data which has come and been put in data lake is being come as a single version of truth, and on that data you are able to do a modeling and analysis and a part of your next generation of next path of optimizing your journey into your operation. I'll give an example to you. Look at part of my wind farm. And on the wind farm, if I have to look at my turbines, I cannot climb up and look at what condition of a turbine is. What is the solution out is there? I may go and send a camera to a drone, and drone will click the images of the turbine as well take a photo of the turbines, the entire video. Now I get the entire thing. I do a simulation to a digital twin to understand what my turbines conditions are. I can do an image which are taking it. I can train my model, get an image analytics, and look at what is the condition of the parts and what spares I need to keep them into my my repository, my inventory, so that I can know when it has to go for maintenance. Same way, there are various other things which need to be looked around. I can get this data coming up from the weather and also from the part of my generation. I can look at, should I keep my plant for my maintenance or not? Whether tomorrow what my wind pattern would be, how much of generation I can harness. Or I can also look at my grid patterns and how the grid is behaving, so that in that case, am I able to upload the data? So in operation and maintenance, there is a huge amount of data which is being considered. And that data, when it comes in, you're looking at managing it, maintaining it, harnessing it for the predictive output, where you are trying to bring in the technologies of evolving technologies, which we call them as a part of the advanced technologies of today. And organization like Tech Mahindra has been awarded as the best data analytics organization globally, and we have got best of the cloud practices. So organization is being placed to bring forward this capability to the large developers like Orsted, like Fortum, and all others into the global scenario and the Nordic scenario, to help them make this journey along with the SMEs like us who are there, to make them go step by step into the process where they can look at their core aspect of growing inorganically and organically in the global scenario and harnessing the wind power, whereas technology companies can support them both on the processes part as well as part of the IT layer and the harnessing of data for their optimized and efficient operation and capacity building.
In the Nordic region, we have many organizations that would probably want to talk to Tech Mahindra about their sustainable industry digital capabilities. How would they proceed? Where would they start in the discussion with Tech Mahindra?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. In fact, that if you want to look at your starting on your roadmap and I will say the digital roadmap which you're looking at, how you're digitally trying to move ahead. See, renewable organizations have grown very fast. Typically, if you look at, it took 50 years for what we have a current our grid, which is today at it, and in last 10 years, if you look at, the renewable has made a mark of capturing around 10% of that entire global footprint. So the way it is trying to move ahead, the organizations are growing every now, day and night. They're trying to grow by means of aggregation of either by a part of an organic growth or a part of an inorganic growth of trying to bring the multiple assets to them. Now, The challenges what organizations are trying to face currently is on bringing these different variety of assets which are being brought in. When I say asset means the wind farms and the solar farms are brought in their portfolio to be linked up and synergized with their ecosystems, and they start actually behaving in a similar way as their own assets which were being seamlessly integrated. So the role of Tech Mahindra as an organization comes over here to stitch those pieces together, be it a part of a consultative layer where you are where the subject matter experts team, which is there present within Tech Mahindra on the various side of it, whether the part of the different functions and the vertical as a part of renewable sector comes and help to understand first to a dipstick to analyze what is the status of the organization and what state they are, and secondly what are the technology interventions required, whether they are trying to look at a part of an OT level of integrations, which is like operation technologies, SCADA systems upgrade, protocols and security to be there, or their IT level of security to be IT level of systems like a command center to be built up, and you are looking and bringing the data from your different farms to the place, and trying to put the entire environment on a cloud and then do a data-driven organization where you are trying to harness the data which you are getting from various farms and having a single version of truth, and to derive a kind of your descriptive diagnostics and predictive modelings and analytics, which helps you to grow forward and become a optimized organization to harness the natural resources. So this is where the organization's different departments come together after a consultative strategy, and then the whole part of if the organizations are already very mature and the processes they need to be looked at by care by the people, there's a complete managed services which says the organization need not to be bothered about their current growth level, and that growth strategy is being done by Tech Mahindra. The entire team of people come and adopt that and then help them in terms of scaling up. I'll take an example over here. One of the very large wind farm generator, as well as a part of who also is into the wind turbine manufacturing. We for last 10 years have been helping them in their growth by supporting their different processes, by making it doing their complete installations, IT installations or OT installations from an offshore models and an onshore models in a kind of an hybrid mechanism, and setting up a command center for them to manage their entire processes and operations and make them into a more of an optimized organization. So this is what Tech Mahindra brings to the table as a digital driven, data driven organization with a consultative domain driven layer. And any point of time, we have our regional teams based out of the Nordic region. Those could be contacted for further more of these processes, and we are always there to support in the process to do a dipstick at your end. We can always come down to those specific organizations who want us to be there, and we can do a 1 or 2 days workshop to really enable them on this, what I was mentioning around, and see how we can do a participative journey and a collaborative journey in the next level.
So, Sumit, I guess that being a global subject matter expert, you get pulled around the world quite a lot. Are you going to be visiting the Nordic region anytime soon?
So, the Patrick, in fact, once this pandemic is being settled, and we are looking forward that we go around different places, especially to do road shows at different areas which are renewable generations areas, and those organizations which are focusing on it, and spend time, do a workshop with them on a one-to-one basis, and be the countries in Nordic areas, especially around Finland, Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, and try to create a landscape of how these things will be done. So we have a local team, as I mentioned, which has been driving at each and every geographies and countries. supported by subject matter experts. And like us, we have a team of subject matter experts. We keep traveling all across the globe. And in fact, I myself has been very keenly involved into various initiatives across the globe and would be driving them at the Nordic region also. So.
Excellent. Thank you. Sumit Gupta, thank you very much indeed for your insights.
Thanks a lot, Patrick. It's been really wonderful to talk to you. I always, I'm a person who has been someone very proponent of the sector. In fact, I was part of the ministry, so I wanted to convey the message to the global scenario that renewable is something which is a way of life. And today I'm happy that I'm able to convey that message to the larger world by talking to you today. And we are there. The knowledge is as knowledge till the time is not been implemented. So I would love to implement that and enrich my knowledge by working with the people in the Nordic region to solve the challenges. Thank you, Patrick, for your time and giving us an opportunity to share our experiences to the team and the people in Nordics one day.
Thank you.